Oh yes, it's a fine place to start talking about the supplementary elections for Adamawa State. We're being joined now by Oluwale Osaze Uzi, who's Director of Voter Education and Publicity at the Independent National Electoral Commission. Mr. Uzi, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Good morning, thank you.
Good morning. Now, quickly, you have talked, we're seeing there, INEC fixing polls now for tomorrow. The supplementary polls will be held tomorrow for Adamawa State.
Yes.
But some parties are kicking. They say that INEC did not consult political parties before fixing the date.
Well, Marco, you recall that this was supposed to hold, the supplementary governorship election was supposed to hold last week Saturday, along with other states, Sokoto and the rest, and Bauchi and the rest. But because of the court injunction that affected Bauchi and Sokoto, we could not proceed with it. So it is a situation foisted upon us by the injunction granted. But now that the obstacle has been removed, we just thought, look, why waste more time? We are conscious of the fact that the Constitution requires us to conclude elections not later than 30 days before the expiration of tenure. And the expiration of tenure is May 29th, so we must conclude the process before April 29th.
They believe that this would disenfranchise some voters, for instance, civil servants. Are you saying, are you suggesting that perhaps a public holiday be declared for that day, or will some people not be a part of the process?
Well, we think everybody will be part of the process. There is nothing in the law that stops us from fixing any date for the governorship. It does not have to be on a Saturday. If the federal government, the state government decides to declare a public holiday or make it a work-free day, by all means, or half day, whichever way, that's okay. We feel that it will assist the process. But don't forget, this is not an election for the whole state. It's an election for, I think it's 44 units out of a couple of thousands that the Adamawa State has. So we think that we should deal with this matter in dispatch, and most stakeholders think that, yes, it is about time we conclude the process. So that's exactly what we're going to do. If not for the judicial intervention, this thing will have been long concluded. It's in small pockets across a couple of local government areas, and we think we just go there and conclude it.
Now, we understand that INEC is trying to ensure that the violence which characterized some of the polls we saw on Saturday does not happen in the Adamawa election, supplementary election as well. What plans are you making in that regard?
Well, there you go. Very often we get asked questions that really are not directly within our purview. As managers and people who superintend the process, yes, it's a fair question. But don't forget that primary responsibility for security does not lie with INEC. So we have to rely on third parties, in this case, security agencies. So we have decided, we consulted, and there was a meeting in Yola yesterday for the Interagency Consultative Committee on Electoral Security. And it was after this meeting that the date was actually fixed. So there were discussions about when best to do this. We also should do things before those forces opposed to voluntary elections have enough time to also gather and regroup. And it was with their inputs that this date was fixed.
I see. Now, you were looking at Zamfara. Let's look at Zamfara now.
Yes.
Enough said on Adamawa. You've withheld the certificates of return to the people, to the All Progressives Congress, following the Court of Appeal judgment which came through from Sokoto. Apart from that stance that you have taken, what else? What is the next step for INEC in that regard? There's now jostling from amongst the parties. APC believes that it has not been totally disqualified from the election, so to speak. They believe it is the people who participated in the primaries organized by Governor allegedly organized by Governor Yari, are the ones who have lost out. They believe that the members who went to court still benefit. Meanwhile, the PDP thinks, well, APC, it means that this is the disqualification of APC in general, and they should be the next beneficiaries. How is INEC deciding the consequences of that Court of Appeal judgment from Sokoto?
Now, that's a big challenge. First of all, we did not withhold the certificates of return of those who were said to have been elected. The National Assembly, we have already given certificates of return. That was done a while back. What we did do was to suspend the exercise this morning. We're supposed to give certificates to those who, the governorship and State Assembly. But we looked at it, and in view of the intervening factor of the court injunction, the court decision of the Court of Appeal sitting in Sokoto on the matter, We have to sit down and study that judgment. That judgment came barely 48 hours ago. I think it was served yesterday with the certified true copy of the judgment. So we have to study it and see what exactly it says. The interesting thing is that, look, our stance as a commission all the while was that, look, you must comply with Section 87 Electoral Act, and you must comply with your rules and guidelines of your own party, which you formulated yourselves. And the law is given to you, but you formulate the laws yourself. And from our own understanding, you did not comply with your own guidelines, and you did not comply with Section 87, because you must candidates only arise after a democratic process. You would either do direct or indirect primaries. When we saw that this was not done, so nobody, I don't know whether there are two sides, but neither of the factions or neither of the strands of the APC can claim, either the home-based faction or the Abuja-based faction. The law says generally the National Executive Organizers is the national body that organizes elections. So, but you must organize primaries one way or the other. In this case, we say they did not do so.
They claim that they have consensus candidates.
There's nothing like consensus candidates. You must still follow a process. Consensus requires that you consult all that. Well, is the consensus for all the members of the party in Zamfara state? In which case you come to a hall, that's direct primaries, and they will ascertain that yes, they do give their consent, because that's the word consent, consensus. You give your consent to this person being the candidate. And if any other person objects, even one person, then you must go back and conduct that election. But it's an election. It's a referendum, as it were, but it must be arise in a democratic manner, not pseudo-consensus, pseudo-elections. You don't have that. It's either you have elections or you don't have elections. And you must have direct elections or indirect elections. Whichever way, the delegate system, you must organize some elections. That's what your party guideline says. In 34 states, you complied with that. But in Rivers and in Zamfara, you did not. So in the Zamfara case, in a sense, the Court of Appeal has vindicated the position that we're not satisfied that elections did not take place, primary elections did not take place. And as such, INEC was correct to have written to you not to accept your candidates. But after the fact is the issue now. In the eyes of the law, for now as it stands, the APC did not organize primary elections, and in accordance with the Section 87 Electoral Act, cannot field candidates, did not have any candidates to field.
They claim that you have shown more than a passing interest in the organization of their own primaries. That isn't it supposed to have been done within their, isn't it an internal party matter, so to speak? What was INEC's business in writing to them, telling them that they haven't complied with their own laws and things of the sort, that they were still going to get the names across to you? How do you respond to this?
That's the point. It's not getting the names across to us. It is for you to follow step-by-step processes and procedures. Mm-hmm. And when you do not do that, it's more than everybody, every Nigerian has a right, a duty to ensure that laws are obeyed. Now, even in the decisions of courts, every person, and that's a legal person, artificial person, corporate entity, a biological person, has a duty to ensure that just judgments of courts of laws are obeyed. Now, when they say that we are a regulatory body, people tend to forget that. Yes, we're called an electoral management body. But in addition to the management of the process, we are a regulatory body. And you have regulatory functions. And monitoring of political parties is a constitutional duty of the Commission. And having observed the process, you invited us for primaries, we went there, and having observed that you did not do so, we had a duty to report it and tell you that, look, we don't think you complied with this. Fortunately, we're not the final arbiter. We have judicial intervention in the matter, and they've looked at it and said, look, no, this is not right. You did not. So INEC was right. The regulator was quite correct. It's like every organization, every part of the country and economy is regulated. The NBC regulates broadcast media. When you're running foul of codes and the law, the NBC tells you so, has a duty to write to you, say, look, I think you're running foul. You shouldn't put guests who use foul language and incitive language and things like that. And if you continue, if you persist, in fact, they can fine you. We cannot even fine. We are one of the weakest. INEC is the weakest regulatory body in the country, but it is a regulatory body. Mm. And it's using its powers of regulation. So, look, you did not conduct right, so you're not entitled to. That's our understanding of the law. And the courts have indicated that they have final say on the matter. We don't have. Mm. So they have judicial overview of what we actually do.
So going by your earlier stance that APC did not comply with, its own rules as regards primaries, what then do you think is going to be your decision with the, what are you going to be reading as a consequence of the judgment reached by the appeal court in Sokoto?
Well, the fact that an election has taken place, and the fact that this is coming after that election has taken place throws up some very interesting and complex legal issues which have to be unraveled, and we can only do that after we have studied the judgments. Now, some may argue that automatically, some say you withdraw the certificates because in the eyes of the law, if APC did not sponsor a candidate, then it's called no votes. Those votes cast for people who were APC candidates were invalid votes, in which case, some will argue, go back to the person who came second. That is an option. Another option will say, some people have heard say, oh, go and conduct other elections, because even though some people might have voted for APC, if APC was not on the ballot, they would have chosen another person. That is an option, but I cannot preempt what the commission will do. We'll look at it, study the consequences of it, study the legal effects of it. But by the way, I must state that it's possible that the party may decide to appeal, or a faction of the party may decide to appeal to the Supreme Court, and that option is still open because the Court of Appeal in these matters is not the final court.
So till that happens, you have to hold the issuance
well,
of
that's,
certificates
yes,
of
do we have to? That's another issue. And we are going to be very careful about it because I said earlier, the tenure of the governor expires in about 6 weeks or thereabouts, 5-6 weeks' time. He must vacate office on May 29, and a new one ought to be sworn in. Now, if this matter is not resolved by the courts or by the commission in one way or the other, then we could have a constitutional crisis in Zamfara. Ditto with the House. The House will stand dissolved about a week after the governor's tenure, a few days after. Now, and it must stand dissolved. So you run a chance that if this thing is not resolved quickly, and we must do so, then there will be a constitutional crisis not quite envisaged by our constitution.
Well, we will definitely have you back again, because we have to ask what is INEC stance in Imo, what's going on in Imo North. We understand that results have not been declared there, and the people there are wondering why. And perhaps maybe what INEC's suggestion will be to firm up and strengthen our electoral process moving forward. But we have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Oluwole Osaze Uzi is Director of Voter Education and Publicity at the Independent National Electoral Commission. Sunrise Daily continues in a moment. Please stay with us.